welcome back to another episode of Parallel Barking. Today is a very, 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 very special episode. We not only have Daddy here with us,
woof, woof.
We also have special guest, Lucy, my sister.
Woo, woo, woo.
Yes!
With very strong opinions.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, so there will be no parallel. There will be none of that.
But a lot of barking.
There'll be lots of barking. Today we have a pretty awesome topic.
For the last day of 2021, this is the last day of yet another pandemic year.
See, and she's already taking over.
I love it. And you might get confused because Lucy and I have a similar sounding voice. So this might get a little hairy, confusing, but.
Well, we all sound the same.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm not as diplomatic as Ariana, so that's probably
that might be your cue. So anyway, came across this interesting article that stated a French dictionary included a new gender nonspecific elle.
Not yell, I-E-L.
I-E-L.
A new ending.
It's a new
to replace
pronoun, a new pronoun for the first time, and it elicited a virulent reaction.
Wait. Is it a new pronoun in addition to, or is it meant to displace the old ones?
I say in addition to.
It's in addition to, not meant to displace.
Oh my
Mr.
goodness, I had
Boomer.
no idea we were at the Académie Française in a meeting. I think that we don't have the authority to make that. But then who does? That's part of the podcast.
Well,
Okay.
I also think having a whole ass meeting about what the realness of your language is very interesting, to say the least.
Well, y'all need to let me lay the groundwork. So shut your mouths. Okay. So this is what happened. Le Petit Robert is rivaled only by the Larousse in linguistic authority, according to this New York Times article, chose to add the IEL, which is a gender neutral merging of the masculine IL, he, and the feminine ELLE, which is she, to its latest online edition, the online edition. So this is an edition, Papa. And so apparently the education minister, among many others, was not amused. And this is one of his quotes. "You must not manipulate the French language, whatever the cause," he said, expressing support for the view that IEL was an expressum of wokism. So the general thought is that this is an assault of the American woke culture coming in to the French.
Right. So it's a bit of cultural imperialism.
A bit. That is the thought. However, what I don't understand, and what I've never understood, is people's feeling of being threatened over the change of language, because it happens constantly. It's going to happen. This is a natural thing. So what is so threatening about this particular change?
I've just changed the language. One of the reasons people get nervous, and this is not a good example, but changes in language tend to be markers. One, of collective understanding. If I keep changing the language or make it specialized, I will have people stay behind and people go ahead, depending on what it is that's being changed. But the other thing it does is that it marks your social position. And it marks, in the case of this in particular, to some extent, it marks your cultural politics. And so when one talks about language changing naturally, you're absolutely right. Language changes with every day, the language will change. But I suspect that we're looking at something just a slightly bit different than that here, although that is involved as well. But the most interesting part of this for me is that actually, I don't even see this as a bit of language change or cultural imperialism. I see this as fights in the market between two large and very influential publishing houses for dominance in their ability to sell their basic books, and then indirectly to affect the language. You in a sense, by putting this in your edition, you've now put out an alternative in the market, and then the market will determine by voting. And how do you vote? A combination of both buying the book, so people are making money, and then using the term. And so it becomes even more interesting than merely the way the Americans might look at it as part of our heroic crusade. Now I'm using the term differently than you might have, so I may have changed the language.
Well, I mean, then that seems hilarious to me.
An identity crusade.
That seems hilarious to me that you say that, then if they're playing the marketing game, because Jean-Michel Blanquer just said that it was ridiculous to try to manipulate the French language. If it's ridiculous, then why are you trying to play this game?
Well, it's ridiculous because he's not doing it. We all understand that.
Yeah, it's not ridiculous when he's trying to do it.
But he's a market actor. What he's saying is, well, it's ridiculous because we have other actors within either the social sphere or the market sphere that supposedly either has a monopoly or has a position with respect to this. And now you are challenging their dominance in the market for changing language.
Right. So what I think is, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I don't necessarily even disagree that there is the different levels of changing language and how that has different markers and different, it can then exclude people or can mark you within a certain culture or out of a certain culture. But I guess I don't necessarily see that even outside of this idea of manipulating the market and the capitalist, I guess, aspect of
markets, not capitalists. That's a different podcast.
The market manipulation using language and trying to sell your version of the book. But even going back to the idea that these different language communities are dangerous is
not dangerous, destabilizing. Oh, you mean
I don't think it's destabilizing, because then talk to everybody who uses AAV. And that is a cultural marker, and there are people who understand it and people don't. And that's destabilizing,
and it's excluding. It's natural. We do that all the time.
It's destabilizing only to those who think that they are in power and who have control.
Or to those who think they are entitled to
that control.
Each of community.
Or for those who do not understand or don't have access through advertence or inadvertence, and then will suffer the consequence.
But it's similar to me as like, okay, if Ari and I have a shorthand in communication as sisters because of our unique community, you are not entitled to access to that shorthand, even though you feel as though you are. It can be a mechanism for safety. It can be a mechanism for any number of things, not necessarily. And as you said, it's natural. So if it's a natural thing, why then the fight against something that if you don't want to be a part of it? And this is something that is arguably more open than most communities. Right.
And why are you arguing? Why would anybody argue to keep it out of existence?
It's an anti-discrimination argument. If in fact you and Ariana can have your own special language, well, that's okay between you two. If you and Ariana represent the entirety of the elite class, and you have your special language which you control. And by using it, you can identify yourselves and speak in ways that those who are not part of your class speak. Now you've excluded.
That already exists.
And so that makes it okay?
No, but I'm saying in a fight to, or not even a fight, in an attempt to adjust that language, there is no getting rid of an elite code for
but
recognizing each other. And so
who's doing the adjusting? That's a very interesting
Listen,
point. Before we got on, we were talking about,
here's my point.
Uh-oh.
By including an additional word in a dictionary, tell me how that is exclusive.
No. Look, you can include whatever words you like. And indeed, the language, as Lucy quite correctly noted, does this all the time, either because someone deliberately wants to do it, which is the case now in either identity or culture or markets-driven strategies, or because it's organic and people change the way they speak. And this has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. That's no problem. And I certainly have absolutely no objection to people inventing things in order to sell more stuff, in order to identify themselves as different from the people that they're standing next to, in order to make themselves feel better or to understand themselves in themselves better. I have no problem with any of that stuff. That's perfect. And even if I had a problem, it wouldn't matter because this has been going on forever.
Right? That's why we no longer speak Middle English, right?
And I do note, however, that none of this can really be sold simply as some kind of liberation policy or liberation consequence. It's much more complicated than that when you insert language within complex dynamic communities. And then adding the second part, which is then to add coercive measures or consequences by the choice of use or non-use, or the availability or non-availability to the meaning and correct use of whatever it is that's done.
Now let's address that second part. What coercive measures and punishment are you
seeing or are privy to?
I can guess. So I'm not going to use the gender issue because it's too sensitive and it's too soon, but I'll give you another one. I speak a form of lower class English. I go and my English is not the standard English. I go for an interview at a very, very high level banking or law firm. It is unlikely that I'm going to get a job. Now, I identify with this language. The language is used by all of my peers. It is a rich and beautiful and complex language, expressive language in English. But I assure you, because I am not using the language, the standard language that is expected by my employer or potential employer, I will not get the job. Now, punishment in this sense isn't the kind of punishment that we're all used to saying, mom spanking babies, although we don't do that anymore. Right. It's lack of access and social as well as economic consequences, because by doing that, you're doing precisely what you're doing when you add gender neutral language. You are identifying yourself within a subgroup, and that will necessarily have consequences, liberatory consequences perhaps, but it'll have consequences that will tend to divide and signal in good ways, but perhaps in ways unintentionally that may be less good if what you're looking at ultimately is a very broad policy of inclusion and et cetera.
So you're bringing it back to the gender pronouns, I guess. You are.
You absolutely are. I mean, and this really, all it sounds to me like is whining about change. And like,
I just think, what is the slippery slope
No.
argument then, because it's one word, it's one pronoun. And at this point in our history, I do believe that using those pronouns or using those endings, as far as, if we're going to do this, the Spanish speaking ones or the Hispanic, Latinx or Latine, is more often than not in most general spheres going to have a negative effect as opposed to a positive effect.
Maybe, but not in the communities that celebrate its use. No, I'm not suggesting that it's bad. There's no whining here. There is a recognition. And again, let me emphasize and underline for those who weren't listening, Ariana, is that I think it's great that language changes. I have absolutely no problem with any of this stuff. I merely note that none of this is cost-free and all of it has significant societal consequences, some of which are unseen and some of which may be inconsistent with other values, progressive values, for example, that people may also want to further, and that it is not a simple matter, which is what makes the education minister or the culture minister's comments just hysterically funny. It's not a simple matter of, oh, I won't use it, or yes, I won't use it, or Moliere didn't use it, and so it's a betrayal of our language or it's cultural imperialism. It is instead the way when you have strategic changes in language like this. This is quite conscious and quite strategic, as opposed to organic and communal, that those strategic choices will also have strategic and sometimes unforeseen consequences, and some of them may be incompatible with the core principles that are driving the strategic change in the first place.
I think that this is less of a strategic change. I think that it is more of a mixed strategic and grassroots organic change, and it may feel more strategic because you are currently living through it. I think it's easier to look at things that have happened that are more in place before us, or please silence your phones, that are more
that means that our time is
but I think that it is generally easier to look at it as strictly strategic as opposed to any of the organic aspects of it. I do agree that it's complicated, but there's unintended consequences for any and every change that happens with language or with anything else. And obviously there's no such thing as a free lunch. So, it all has costs, but I feel like it's more organic than you're giving it credit for. And I feel like this is something that, I agree. I think we can all agree that the language minister is silly for his comments. It's definitely a silly sentiment, but I don't.
The education minister.
Or the education minister. I don't think that it is just simply a people in think tanks we're going to introduce this new gender pronoun and release it onto the world for our strategic means.
If only we were that organized. If only people were that organized.
And I don't think they are. And I think there's more people who started using these things organically earlier than you would have thought, because it takes time for these things to even become on this level of usage. And
I'm afraid a PhD student 40 years from now will give us the definitive answer that we don't have just now. But I suspect that the quote unquote answer that the PhD student in the future will find is that it's somewhere between us. That there is a lot of strategies and strategic choices going on, but that the strategic choices fill a market demand, and that market demand is organic, right? It begins to look organic, and that there's a serendipitous but quite lucky, right, conflation of the two, and that things take off, and when there isn't, it doesn't.
Well, agreed. And I think that even going back to the elitist language and all of that, I think that you're never going to get rid of that. And that going against the progressive value of wanting to get rid of an elitist language or something that would disqualify somebody for the way they speak. You're never going to get rid of that. That's a pipe dream, in my opinion. as much as we'd like to think it's not, that's not, people will always look at a way to segment society into levels based on language. However, I will say that I think a more inclusive addition to that elitist language, I'll take it. I'll take it as a win. And I'm not quite sure how that comes across,
Well,
but
for the moment and for as long as it lasts, because we are involved in communal meaning making, and these things tend to last only as long as we do. And we have no idea what our children, well, I have an idea what my children, but we have no idea what our grandchildren or great-grandchildren are going to think about all of this. 100 years from now, they may be having a podcast in which they're going to mock us for the very things that we're talking about, because we have absolutely no clue about what's important to the community 100 years from now. But that's okay.
what are your final thoughts, Ari?
Are you guys done? I'm just kidding. Well, I mean, I do think this is more than just the language. This is people feeling like they're losing control of their own politics. They feel like they're being threatened. They feel like it's more about more than language, and it's more about the discussion of people and how people want to be described and treated, and how other people are willing to receive that. And I don't think everyone is willing to have that conversation just yet.
Yeah, it's way too sensitive. Nerves are very raw.
And instead, they would rather call it threatening and wokism. So, on that note, I think
awake.
I think we have covered this, and we will probably cover something like this again and again and again.
That's right. And for our next one, I'm going to interrogate the use of the word we. We're going to have to substitute something else for it that suggests not an amalgamation, but something more complicated. There must be at least, there ought to be maybe 16 different ways of saying we.
I'm sure in some languages there are.
Well, we're going to have to work on it.
Yeah. I use it in the sense of the royal we.
That's my favorite.
Oh, we're going back in time, are we?
All right. Any last words
Woof,
before I
woof.
kill you?
That's okay. I'm standing next to him. I'll get to it faster.
Woof, 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 woof. And that's gender neutral.
My last words are Happy New Year to everyone. Please stay safe. Try not to get Omicron or any other various variants, and keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, and good luck.
And goodbye.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Woof, woof.